loving it. Get smart from the day. Anyway, so I'm not going to do a marathon. It's going to be, what's going to be first? The Kinitrology. This is for Kinitrology. I'm getting ready for that red button, this red button. You're already going for the live people. So, without any further ado, whatever ado means, Kinitrology, evolutionary science, evolutionary biology, psychology. So, here we go. I wonder how I'll do. Let's see. And hello, Steve here. Welcome to Kinitrology. Oh, I haven't set that up. You'll see my big leg resting on a table. Yes, podcast people, I'm doing this on video as well. So, welcome to Kinitrology. The science, the study of, incentive, the science of honesty. That's how I like to sort of plug Kinitrology. How could you? You don't have the authority to think of a new field of study. Well, I have. I'm doing it, and this is Kinitrology. Today you clicked on it. Evolutionary biology and psychology. I should have perhaps named this episode, this discussion, this unpacking, I could have perhaps named it evolutionary science, but specifically, I think the way that that it's, yes, hello to my one and only viewer, hello, daughter, hope you're doing well today. I think it's the King's birthday today. Yes. So, I'm going to call you later too. So, evolutionary biology and psychology deserve the same space because we are perhaps shoehorning Darwinist type ideas into the space. There is perhaps a false dichotomy, I call it, where there's this dichotomy of evolutionary science or evolution versus creation. The people of faith, the biblical people, the church people, the Christians, the Muslims, the whatever. So there's a space for the creation side of things, but today let's unpack and then repack that suitcase of evolutionary science, biology, psychology, and the sort of people that I've followed regarding the evolutionary biology part of things, and they dabble in the psychology part of evolutionary science, is Brett Weinstein and his other half, not the better half, the other half. That's how we should look at relationships. Heather Hang, Dr. Brett Weinstein, Dr. Heather Hang, they've been ostracized from the mainstream biological academic complex. And so that's one content absorption that I've been taking from the Dark Horse podcast, and also on the evolutionary psychology side is Dr. Gard Saad, evolutionary psychologist of Concordia, a Canadian chap, a Canadian professor. So, and just recently I heard Christina, evolutionary psychologist Christina, I forgot the name, but she wasn't very impressive. That's why I've probably forgot the name, because she had a shocker of a interview podcast episode with Chris Williamson on what's it called? What's that podcast called? Modern Wisdom. Yes, the Modern Wisdom podcast. I endorse that podcast. So, how's this going? What direction are we going with evolutionary science, the biology and the psychology side of things? Well, it all started with, I guess, the Charles Darwin. He was given a stage exposure. His ideas were allowed, because prior to that, any idea that was allowed that diverted away from creation type ideas got the chop, like literally sometimes beheaded. So Darwin got some recognition, some space, and out of his work of ooh, did it come out the same time as Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, 19 uh, 1848 rather? Was it the same year? Anyway, don't hold me to that, but in that sort of time frame. And from Charles Darwin came things like survival of the fittest, which also fit into Karl Marx literature. Dog eat dog, um, capitalist pigs. I'd love to be a capitalist pig that had a bit of dough. um, so, and where I'm going with the survival of the fittest is where I guess the Weinsteins have suggested, even Gadsad, so the biologist, evolutionary biologist reference point that I'm working off, and the evolutionary psychologist reference point that I'm working off with Dr. Gadsad, they suggest, which I agree, it's a reproductive selection, not a survival of the fittest. It's survival of being chosen as a mate. And when humans, this is about humans, right? When us humans are part of this equation, men propose, women dispose. Men approach, women are the gatekeepers of selection, mate selection. And there's all this bro science and incel type, manosphere type content out there that suggests that women only go for the top, well, they like to go for the top 1% of gents, but most women are in there for the top 10 and 20% of men in their status mainly. Looks do come into it. Looks come into it as short mating preferences, and the reason why women have a greater tendency to have more partners in this time is because they're able to. There you go. The first reference to perhaps the incentives of understanding how we shoehorn our ideas of evolutionary biology and therefore psychology as well. It's how much is accepted, how much is what risk we're willing to take. And there's this old sort of belief, if we give women too much freedom, they're going to take it and run. And yes, for the conservative folk and the moral folk, which is code for conservative, they have taken it and running fierce through phallic object after phallic object, the thousand penis stare and all that sort of thing, which the manosphere suggests. And there's a lot of data to suggest that women that have more than 5 partners in their life lose their ability to bond and have successful longer term relationships. I'd like to challenge that, because age, mating strategies comes into play. Not where I should progress in this unpacking of the whole idea of evolutionary biology and psychology. But what I'm trying to suggest here is that we are the product of what is allowed, therefore the incentives. So the incentives of free pursuit of love is just that. The incentive is there for certain personality types to be more restrictive, to gatekeep more, to look for long-term partner cues versus the short-term enjoyment of partner seeking. And that, I do believe, is a personality proclivity, preference, risk-taking appetite idea. And I'm not just saying the use of protection and whatnot. I'm saying the risk of future bonding ability. That may be one thing. I believe that we're not that biologically wired to suggest that even after 15 or 30 partners that we're not able to bond any further. If we get to 4 and we get to that 5th that they talk about in the research, I sincerely believe that we don't lose the ability to not bond. But you can't control hormones and this and that. Well, I believe that hormones are a way to explain away our personality proclivities, our risk-taking tendencies. And yes, short-term mating strategy and longer-term mating strategies are just strategies that we navigate at a time of life and age that we are at. To go into specifics, this will be a very, very, very long episode, but I'm just trying to shoehorn my own incentive ideas into the space. So, yes, I do agree that evolutionary biology and psychology is a mating preference idea. So, which feeds into where are we going? I've done a few episode ideas where I do talk about relationships and communication and how we're going and that sort of thing, and whether in this current situation we are managing well, whatever well is, with our evolutionary stage that we're in. Will technology change all that? Well, technology has had a hand in changing our preferences, because our preferences are now more choosy. We're able to choose now because we have this world on our screen, at our fingertips. We are free to leave our very moral, conservative, Dunbar's number little group, family, community, even a parish. We're able to, the less conservative folk, gone. We hear of, this is all about the incentives of our evolutionary biology and psychology, where given that freedom, which we've heard the stories of some of the quite conservative, restrictive, moral, some say, societies of what's some of the sects, cults, religions out there. Amish. Let's mention the Amish. The Amish apparently give the freedom of the child. Well, the child that's now 18. Go and experience what modern life is. We'll see you back here. And you hear the stories of, oh gee, they're coming back. But you also don't hear the stories of the ones that do fly the coop and never come back. I like to see some of the data on that, but in those sort of societies, you won't get data. You will just get archetypes, cultural tidbits that our people don't leave us. I don't know about that. Even in those very conservative, religious type societies, you do get flyers given the freedom that they get. Many don't get the freedom, hence the restrictions of the past that the left or the liberals or the progressives would like to suggest that we need to escape from. And they escape, and they're in the desert, and then some come back, but some stay free and hedonistic and pursue their titillation, the conservatives would say, the hedonism. And that comes down to risk tolerance, personality proclivities, feeding into their incentives. And the incentives for, let's say, half the population is to be more free, to not be restricted. Am I making my point? I don't know. I grandiosely think that I am making my point. So, have I packed the suitcase, or is it still unpacked? I probably don't know for sure. This is probably meant as further thoughts on how we see ourselves and academia, how it treats evolutionary biology and psychology. I will often reference Robert Pirsig, a profound author that I've explored, hasn't written many books, and the ones that he has written, very profound. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which is not about either of those two ideas. And then Leela, an inquiry into morals. Oh, that first reference, the motorcycle and Zen. That's what's the extended title of that? Sorry, it's not there, but that's a great that 1973 book is more popular than the Leela one, but the Leela one ties things up, and that's quite profound. And basically, he nails down both books down into the last sentence of Leela, suggesting that it's all about what we value. And even though that may seem quite evident and self-evident, and why did you have to read those two books to even know that? Well, it's important to complexify things to then realize that it's what we value, and that's what the primordial soup suggested in evolutionary biology, where there is a preference of cells to get together in some way, creating this organism, that organism, then the creationists will say, what are you talking about? That's not how we existed or were created. Okay, I get it. I'm not grandiose enough to suggest, to believe which way is for sure, unless something for sure is presented in front of our face. Oh, but we know because, well, I'm not convinced, and I still have enough epistemic humility to be open to what really is going on. Even, is the universe really 14 billion plus years old, and our galaxy, or our sun at least, 4.5 billion years old? I don't know. We only got mathematics to relate those things. But the whole idea of the primordial soup, simple organisms, complex organisms, and then human beings, it appears appetizable, um, following the whole idea of logic, and but with that logic, yes, there was selection at some point, and that selection led us to this point. Oh, but this point is terrible. Da, da, da. Well, if this point suggests that we're safe as hell, never been so safe, comparatively speaking, throughout in the entire history of humans, then it's a good spot. We like to poo-poo which spot we're in, but when I'm sitting here, able to broadcast to the world thoughts versus even just a brief century ago, where you were only had a Dunbar's number exposure to 100, 150 people, and then get a bit complex with cities and that sort of thing from 5,000 years ago. But whatever existence we find ourselves in, depending on our capacities, our personality proclivities, and our risk-taking appetite, we then have different strategies. Some don't work, some fail, and some succeed. Then we have certain ideas like the Pareto principle, and the 1% thing, and the 10% thing, and goodness. And women thinking they're a 10 when they're a 7, and all that sort of thing out there. Then you have ideas of woke and left and conservative and right and this and that is all shoehorning evolutionary psychology. One particular, even though I've referenced Dr. Gad Saad, where he makes some profound points, produced some profound academic literature in the past, researching hormones and female purchasing strategy, that sort of thing. He's part of a business school too. He also gets some perplexing, repulsive type ideas where being homosexual is a mating preference or a mating choice, or that's how you find yourself in that society, suggesting that it's a chosen mating strategy. I've probably butchered that, but that's pretty much what he's indicating. It's a mating strategy. Mating for what? You're not going to get kids out of that. My own personal opinion of this space, the whole LGBTQ idea, space, content idea, is that, particularly with the homosexual side of things, is that it's a birth defect. Oh, by even mentioning that, it sounds wacky and on the right and conservative, and how could you, and you're an extremist, this and that. if life is about reproducing, how would for some or even many, it might be a choice. But for some or many, in my main content creation or my main focus on life pursuit is health. I've got many interests, but health is my go-to shtick, and my extensive look into improving my own health has uncovered the whole idea of homosexuality just may be a birth defect based on mother did not get the right micronutrients between the 3rd and 7th week of pregnancy, where you go from a disc to a ball in the development of the fetus. But I didn't explore fully the scientific idea of that, just the idea, because I'm not capable or interested enough to go into the nitty-gritty, the splitting of that particular example. I'm much of a lumper in scientific ideas, and this is my lump of where we are with evolutionary biology / psychology, and to sum it up, to zip up this suitcase of bleh, everything's been tipped upside down and then repacking it, is that it is all incentive based. And just to sum up an idea, sum up the whole idea of our incentives in what choices we do present, strive for, and find ourselves doing, is we fit ourselves. There's this whole idea that women think they're a 10 when they're a 7, or when they're really a 4, they say, oh, I'm a 7, this and that, and all that rating idea with the manosphere and whatnot. A woman knows exactly where she fits in the scale, the level of her looks, beauty, attractiveness to mates. And for the man that seeks a partner, and even the female with her partner, you just have to look at the partner they are with, and that is the value that they have in themselves and what the other person feels about themselves. And that's a summation of where we find ourselves, how we rate ourselves with our status, our looks, and our mate preference. So that is a sum up, an idea. You just have to look at the partner you're with, or the people you seek, and that is the root formulation of your your evolutionary biology and psychology mix. There you go. That's the moral of today's attempt in repacking this subject matter. So until the next time, I might go from 1.2 listeners to 2.3. I don't know. I'll keep on doing this even if I don't get views. I don't care. Until the next time, hopefully. Bye-bye for now. Red button, red button. Bye-bye. Right. I'll end it there. That was today's attempt. To the live people or person. Nah, gone. Even the person I had, gone out of the contest. So this is one of 2 episodes. So I'll stop the live as well and restart in a moment after a brief break, a comfort break and beyond. Right.